what blows customers away when they're using 3AM?
So really our 3D mapping. So we could tell you where you are inside a building with height. And also in Wildland, we have this 3D terrain. We're not doing anything crazy. We're leveraging consumer grade technology. We're just bringing it to the fire space. And it really blows everyone away that they could actually see where their people are, even in a wildland area on the mountainside with like the vegetation and whatnot, because we're pulling in all the satellite imagery. So you could actually, from a commander standpoint, you could actually see, is this individual on a rock face, which is not going to burn, or are they in actual brush? That's going to change your decision.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to What's Next, Stories of Industry Reinvention by TechNexus Venture Collaborative. I'm Jim Dahlke, our Director of Communications.
And I'm Ellie Davis, our Director of Venture Operations.
And today we are bringing you the inside look at 3AM Innovations, a TechNexus Venture Collaborative portfolio company that's really bringing some essential life-saving technologies to first responders.
3AM is built by firefighters for firefighters, making our first responding teams safer, more accurate in emergency situations. When I found out that our first responders don't have access to the same tracking that I do on my phone, I was mind blown. 3AM's FLORIAN technology is helping address that problem in the market and helping keep our firefighters accounted for and safe.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, this is a business built by co-founder Patrick O'Connor, who was a volunteer firefighter himself. So he saw firsthand the challenges that this industry faced with a lack of innovation, a lack of tracking technology, both for its personnel and for its assets. And this was really an opportunity to bring firefighting into the 21st century. So without further ado, let's kick it to our conversation with TechNexus's Kelvin Wong and Patrick O'Connor to dive deeper into the 3AM innovation story.
Patrick, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I definitely want to hop into your story. I absolutely love the origin story of 3AM, and it really speaks to how you identified and filled a critical need. And it's funny because I think it really makes sense with the startup truth, which is like the best ideas don't just come with innovation, but they're also coming from solving a real urgent problem. So can you walk us through how 3AM got started?
Yeah, of course. Again, my name's Patrick O'Connor. I'm the co-founder at 3AM. So I was a volunteer firefighter back talking years ago now. Actually, I since left the service because I just didn't have time to be a volunteer anymore. In 2009, we actually lost 2 Buffalo firefighters just due to the outdated accountability system. And my chief, he also was a career firefighter at Buffalo Fire. And so I remember looking at him, telling him that this is ridiculous. I'm gonna figure out a way to do it. And how can we solve this? So literally 3AM comes from, at the time I was running restaurants. I was a volunteer firefighter. So my day job was running restaurants. And I would come home and I would just go in my home office and I'll just research tech. Like, how can I make this a thing? So years go by, I was doing that. I was looking into, the oil industry. I was looking into mining. I was looking into something had to exist that we could bring over into the fire space. And eventually it got to the point where I just realized that, no, it doesn't exist. I have to build it. So I am a techie person. I don't know how to build tech. So what I did was I actually went to the startup ecosystem here in Buffalo and just told us, like, hey, I need to find a good person, because effectively I'm marrying this person, find a good person who knows tech and could help me build this. And I went through a few people, and then finally, actually, I sat down with my now co-founder, Ryan, and basically we were sitting at a Starbucks. It was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. 3 hours go by. I started telling him why, firefighters need this. We're really just leveraging whiteboards and dog tags. and running into a burning building and saying, well, I hope you know where I am if I'm in trouble. And so he's like, all right, let's do this. And so we quit our jobs, took out a home equity loan, did all the fun stuff. But when it came time to actually naming the company, all those nights of actually staying up to 3 in the morning, it was like, well, that makes sense because that's actually when all the bad stuff happens. And that's literally the genesis of the company. So 3 a.m. Is literally where the name came from too.
That's amazing. And I'd love to touch a little bit more on your volunteer firefighter experience. How did that inform like how you wanted to run your business?
So yeah, when I was 18, I was driving. So I lived on Grand Island, New York. And I was driving by our local fire department. And I was like, just hit me one day. I was like, I want to, I want to join. I want to go in. So I walked into the department and I asked them like, how do I join you guys? And they're like, fill out this application, and then I get accepted. Then we go through training and whatnot. But effectively, one thing that I learned later in life, after running this company, I realized that the majority of firefighters are actually ADHD. And it's interesting now that we look at it. It's because if you have ADHD, you actually can make quick decisions on little bits of information. And there's a lot of people now that, that we work with that you could tell that they're very type A and they need to have all the data before they can make a decision. But if you think about it as a firefighter, you get very, very small amounts of data, but you got to make a life-changing decision and you got to do it quick. You can't wait around and you're like, well, let's look around the building more and let's actually see where the structure is. You got to actually just make the decision and go, and you got to stick to it. And it's interesting, like one thing I've noticed that like ADHD allows you to do that in chaotic environments. So something like that actually helps me in the business world because I can make a gut decision and still be confident with it rather than having to like, well, let's wait another 2 more weeks. It's like, nope, we got to move. And as a startup, you got to move fast. So,
Absolutely. So you joined the firefighting like in 18 years old?
mhm. Yep.
That's amazing. And during that time, I bet there's a lot of learning, a lot of adjusting to that environment. Were there anything that stood out to you in terms of like how departments handled firefighter tracking, even at a young age?
There is no firefighter tracking. So if you, even today, if you go ask the majority of fire departments, they literally have a whiteboard and dog tags. So the way that the current process, and that's called accountability, not in the sense of like holding you accountable, it's knowing where your people are in terms of accountability. And so if you go to the majority of fire departments and you ask them how do they handle their accountability, they'll show you the dog tags in the whiteboard. And the whole process is when I get on scene at the incident, I'll go to the accountability officer, hand them my dog tag, and say I'm on the attack line or I'm on roof ops or I'm on, whatever job that I'm assigned to. They will clip it to that spot of the whiteboard. And then just when I run in, every time I give a PAR update, they just write down where I said I was. And then if anything should go wrong, they go, okay, Patrick said he was on the EV corner of the second floor. Go get him. But it's only right if I knew where it was. So it's very reactive, and that is the best that they have today. Now 3 a.m. we made it where now it's all automated. We actually dubbed it APL, and what that means is automated personal location. In the fire service, they have what's called AVO, automated vehicle location. That's been around for a very long time. Police use it, fire use it. Everyone knows where their vehicles are. But as soon as they get on scene and the people disembark, now you don't know where they are. That's where we come in and we have the automated personal location.
Definitely. And I feel like it's such an outdated system back then with its whiteboards and dog tags. What blows customers away when they're using 3 a.m.?
So really our 3D mapping. So we could tell you where you are inside a building with height. And also in Wildland, we have this 3D terrain. We're not doing anything crazy. We're leveraging consumer grade technology. We're just bringing it to the fire space. And it really blows everyone away that they could actually see where their people are, even in a wildland area on the mountainside with like the vegetation and whatnot, because we're pulling in all the satellite imagery. So you could actually, from a commander standpoint, you could actually see, is this individual on a rock face, which is not going to burn, or are they in actual brush? That's going to change your decision. Now take it into a building. You're going to actually, let's say it's a 30-story building. and the fire is on the 27th floor. You actually stage the floor below. So you have people ferrying tools up to the 6th floor to actually then move it up eventually up to the 27th floor as needed. But knowing where all of those logistics are is important. And so having that, not just by radio, is very helpful. And then the last piece is large events. Not a lot of people realize that any incident or event that is going to have more than 3,000 people at it, you need to have a coordinated EMS presence. So all, 4th of July, all your marathons, all, football games, baseball games, all that. There has to be an actual coordinated EMS presence at that event. So all that planning and everything, but then knowing where your people are. So we found that FLORIAN actually shortens the time to care immensely for all these events because typically with the radios, they're literally just saying, okay, this is your region. And if anything occurs, I'm going to send you to it. But you might be out of position because you're assisting someone else and another call comes in, but actually I'm down here. I can just jump over and help. And they don't know that off the radio because they don't know where you are. But looking on the map, it's very simple, like, oh, to St. Patrick. And that's one thing we have found that we help immensely in those areas too.
And we talked a lot about the tracking mechanisms of 3M and those tools. Let's also talk a little bit more like the communication. So explain how it's critical for EMS and firefighters to be better able to communicate during an emergency.
So a lot of just by having the location piece alleviates a lot of the radio traffic. And if you think about it, it's there's a pipeline. There's only so much radio traffic you can have. If you and I are trying to talk on the same radio, one of us is going to get stepped on. And what that means is you're talking, but no one can hear you because I'm over top of you. And so having to report your location, that's roughly about 40% of all radio traffic of saying where I am. Now, taking FLORIAN an example, you now get 40% more bandwidth to talk. So it helps with, just strategic of where we're going to place our location, where we're going to do it. Well, I can do that on FLORIAN, and now I'm not telling people, I need you to go around back, I need you to this. We could actually just issue that on FLORIAN, and they get that through us, and then they go. We also have text messaging through our application. So if you're talking for like the large events again, like Super Bowl, marathons, well, you don't have to get on the radio. You could just text back and forth and it's global or, so you could literally text everyone and they all get the information. So now it's just allowing you to have other avenues, but it's all stored in one location, a single source of truth, if you will. And then with a replay, you could actually pull it all up again. So the communication piece is huge because if you think of, talking about multi-agency, and I know that's a big thing in the news and everything since the assassination attempt on, the president. Now, the issue is you have all these different departments coming together. They have this unified command, but really in the unified command, it's I'm from one agency, you're from another. My agency says something. I just lean over and tell you and say, hey, Kevin, we saw this guy who's over on the other side. Tell your people. And then you get on the radio and you tell your people. So if everyone is in FLORIAN now, they could text each other back and forth, send the video. Now everyone gets it to their mobile phone instead of having to actually go to one person and you go to another and like basically play telephone. Because the radio systems can't interlink, we could provide that to them. And now they have it in a much more quicker fashion.
I know you mentioned wildfires and like being able to track people in like areas with less cellular service and stuff like that. And I feel like we can't talk about wildfires without the LA fires. Can you talk a little bit about how FLORIAN's been present there and your hand in that as well?
Basically, we work with a lot of chiefs out there. And so when we heard that that was happening, I wrote to all of the chiefs I knew and I said, like, hey, if I get as many devices or cell phones, many devices as I can get and fly out there and give them out, would that be helpful? And I received it back, yes, just come. And so I, I booked a flight 3 hours later, called my wife and said, hey, I'm actually going out to the fires. I went to my kids' school real quick and said goodbye to them. And then, went home, packed a bag real fast and jetted to the airport. But then, when I was on the ground, I, went around to all the different command posts, and we handed out cell phones. So we were actually tracking the U.S. Forest Service. We were tracking Orange County. We were tracking a whole bunch of different agencies out there. And what was impressive is we were able to put them all onto one map. So now they all had their own individual, technologies, but now just by handing them a cell phone, we were able to actually have everyone able to see where the other assets are. And it was simple, even as just leaving it in the fire truck and just say, look, here, just put this in the fire truck. We're not tracking your people right now, but you at least now know where your other assets are. And so being able to do that was very helpful for them. So.
Awesome. So two questions. How many devices did you give out in the LA fires across all of those different departments?
So we personally don't have too many. We have a total of 150 phones
Wow.
here with us, but we actually already so we use them for our customers. So our customers actually rent them for large events, to supplement their actual existing force. So we had 50 of them were already out the door. So I was only able to bring about 100. But we leveraged our partners, so like T-Mobile and FirstNet that we work with. And so they gave us some phones that we were able to load our software on. And also Cal OES, which is their Office of Emergency Services, they have about 300 phones as well. And FLORIAN is loaded on all of those phones, so we could, have them ship them out as well. So.
Amazing. So that's a total like almost 500 phones. That's awesome. And how many of those first responders was that their first time using Florian? And what was their
Oh,
reaction to it?
that is so. We the nice part is we tell them just put it in your pocket and forget about it. And it's because that's one thing is you want to actually extend the battery. The screen is what actually uses the majority of the battery. So we wanted it to just be in your pocket, just put it in and walk away. And we were actually working with T-Mobile for that with Starlink. Although the only downside is the data portion wasn't active yet, or still isn't active yet now. But it was only text messaging. So the nice part is leveraging those phones, they knew even though when they were out in complete areas that had no cellular coverage, they could at least text message back. So that was something that they were really excited about. And then soon when the data goes live, we'll be able to actually track firefighters no matter where you are and actually have the data component going over the satellite. So that's something that I think is really exciting for firefighters, especially in the wildland area. But yeah, everyone's very, they're welcoming it now. Before, 5 years ago or so, I was like, don't track me. But now everyone else is like, you're being tracked everywhere, no matter what. Like my wife is tracking me right now. She knows I'm sitting here. The same concept is like now people are more open to it and they realize that in terms of FLORIAN, it's for your safety. We're not doing it to reprimand you in any way. It's no, if you're in trouble, we want to know where you are.
And with the rise in like disasters like wildfires we've seen in the West Coast, talk about how 3M's product is needed more now than ever.
Well, if you think about it, it's just knowing where your people are allows you to actually make better decisions. So take the wildfires, for example. All of that actually, the smoke and all the particulate that goes in the air, it actually wipes out all of the greenhouse gas consciousness that happened. It's just pumping carbon dioxide into the air. So being more efficient and getting those out and putting them out faster is the best thing for us. And so FLORIAN is actually again shorten the time to care for large events. Well, you translate that over to a wildfire. We're making them more efficient since they know where all their forces are to the T, rather than we know they're in this region. It's like no, we know exactly where they are. Now that allows you to actually be more efficient with your resources and know how you're going to actually cut off this fire faster.
And I feel like in startup land, we also talk about like how important timing is. And I feel, especially now with like technological advancements like Starlink, like you mentioned, we're able to position 3M for success. Can you tell us like a little bit more about how tech available today wasn't possible like 20 years ago and how it's helped 3M?
You're 100% right. So we started almost 8 years ago now at this point. And we started in hardware because there wasn't anything to track firefighters, just there wasn't anything that we could leverage. And we even had investors in the very beginning ask us, like, well, why don't you use cell phones? Like, well, they can't do it right now. They don't have that ability. So we had to make our own device. We still hold 3 international patents on a wearable, like when on your boot, that could actually tell you where you are. But the nice part is cell phones quickly got to that point where now we can leverage them inside of a building. So in the very beginning, I would say, even just 8 years ago, it wasn't possible. So 20 years ago, no, absolutely nothing. Just you had flip phones at the time that they couldn't really do much. So having the technology advance to where it is today, yeah, and yeah, talking about Starlink, that is another game changer. Like when that goes live, when the data piece is live with that, it's going to be a completely new world for wildland fire because now you could actually see in real time, no matter where they are. So it actually is going to change how they are fighting fires because they are able to get this data piece. They've always been trying with like drones and other things, like how can we actually get the data out into these areas? And Starlink is by far the best way to do it. So we as a company are very excited about that. But you're right, it's like it's an ecosystem. It's not just us. We're one piece of it. So yes, we're the tracking software, but we need the connectivity. We need the devices. We need all of these pieces to play and together so that it would actually work. Same thing with our other software partners that we work with. So NextNav, they're one of our partners that gives us the ability to do height. So with them, we brought what's called an SDK. It's a small piece of software that they made that we bring into our application that allows us to work with their system. But yeah, we built their SDK into ours, and now we're able to actually track a firefighter with height. But they did it for the 911 FCC mandate. If you call 911, there's a mandate out there that they have to be able to tell you, you have to be able to tell dispatch how high you are. So that's what NextNav is focused on. But we went to them and said, hey, look, we like to know where the firefighters are. And so we could actually marry them up. When they come to go get you, they know exactly where to go to get you. And so that made sense. But they did it for a whole different industry, different reason. We're bringing it into the fire space, or first response.
So that's 8 years ago. What will it look like in 50 years? Like, how will firefighting, in your best predictions, how will it change in 50 years?
So obviously you're kind of seeing it right now too with the Boston Dynamic dogs. There's one, I believe it was over in South Korea. They have outfitted those dogs as firefighting dogs. So they have a hose, like an actual hose on the top of them, and with a adaptable head to move and change, and it will walk into the fire and it will start using sensors that it has, thermal imaging and others, to put out the fire. So that's one. You'll see more of those coming out. Um, and also, I think you're going to get more virtual reality. We already were working with Microsoft on their HoloLens, and the whole concept was start small. So we have an AI tool built in where if you yell the word Mayday, it triggers an alert. They wanted that to actually show up in their headset, so it's not overwhelming. You just look at the building and you see the dot blinking of the person that's in trouble, and then the whole concept is you go into the fire and you're just going to actually get yourself to that dot. But I see it getting to the point where the actual fire face mask is actually an overlay. You're seeing some companies right now, it's called Quake. It's actually a friend of mine, Sam, is the CEO there, doing some incredible stuff with kind of, pseudo overlaying on it. It's a, screen. But yeah, I would say in the next 50 years, you're going to get to the point where your whole face mask is able to overlay data on top of it, show you where your other firefighters are inside, just, depicting where they are. There's a lot that you're going to get to where it's more heads up display. And so that's where I think it's gonna go. You're already kind of seeing it start, but yeah, then miniaturization of the devices. So like right now, yes, we're leveraging a cell phone just because it is the best thing out there for it. But there's going to be more and more devices that are purpose built just for it. Like right now, they're not there yet. They're starting, but and then watches. You're going to see more and more watches get involved. We built our watch app 4 years ago, and we got a lot of opposition from fire departments because they're like, yeah, I don't want to track my vitals. Like, yeah, let's stay away from that. But now we're already seeing a shift. We already are seeing some fire departments requesting it, saying, hey, can I track the vitals of all my people when they're deployed? Like, yeah, we could easily do that for you, but you got to want it, and it's getting there. So I would say you're going to see more vitals being tracked. You're going to see more heads-up displays and things like that.
So it's really cool to see how many different integrations you guys have. Like you mentioned Starlink, you mentioned Microsoft, as well as like the altitude tractor. Um, Tell us about like how you're able to leverage these relationships and build these relationships in 3AM.
Yeah, so basically, that's actually what my role. That's right. I do business development here, and really everything, much like the fire service, it's a relationship business. Is getting to know them, showing that you're actually here for the right reasons. We're here for firefighter safety. And that's one thing we're relentless about. We're always going to do what the right thing is. And for example, the data. We'll never sell the data that we have. It's the fire department's data. And we make sure all of our partners know that. We've actually had one partner, no, won't name them, but they asked like, "Hey, could we buy the data from you?" I said, "No, it's not ours. You get buy it from the fire department. You got to ask them." And so that's something that I think resonates. And we always tell everyone that I will never be the blocker for an integration, and even if it's my direct competitor. If a fire department says, "Hey, I want you to share our data over with this," we will do it. I can't control what they would say, the other company, but it'll never be us as a blocker. We will work with anyone and everyone as long as the fire department or the first response, if it's police or whatever, sees value in us working between the two.
Like partnering up with your competitors is almost unheard of. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean about like being in this industry for the right reasons and how 3AM really stands on that as a pillar?
Well, if you think about it, for a mutual aid incident, there's let's take a domestic violence incident. The police have to go there first. And let's say that they're using, another product to track themselves. And then the fire department comes because they have to actually then take care of, EMS for the person. Well, they're using our product. Well, if we don't work with this other product, you're only showing half the picture. So we have to work together for the betterment of the fire space, of the first response, of whoever we're working with. Because if you're only showing half the picture, it's a negative aspect. Take a school shooting. You're going to have multiple agencies come in. We can't expect to have 100% coverage. Like no one has 100% coverage. Apple doesn't have it. Google doesn't. Like there's always going to be multiple players in there. And so we have to work together, or we're not helping the incident. We're actually hindering it. From the very start, one of the things I hated was I heard, going back to AVL, automated vehicle location, is in California, the U.S. Forest Service and Cal Fire, they have vehicle tracking on both, but two separate systems. They go to each other's calls all the time, but they can't see where each other's vehicles are because the systems won't talk to each other when they could. It's very, very simple. You can do it. They just don't want to because it's an old school mandate of like, no, if you don't buy my system, you don't get it. But now you're hindering the departments that have to work together. And I think it's just a new age way of thinking about it is, look, guys, there's enough business out there for all of us. We need to work together. And the thing is, I think the customers are expecting it now, and they're requesting it, to be honest.
Got it. And I think a big part of that also comes with your story as a volunteer firefighter and having like a foot in that space as well. Can you tell us about how that experience was formative to how you run your business now?
Yeah. So basically, with being a firefighter is, you know, that truly is the reason why we're here for the betterment of the fire space. Is it's my brothers and sisters. I want to make sure my brother actually is a chief right now. He's a chief in a volunteer department as well. So I'm always going to be here for what's going to help the fire space, and that's what we always try to keep the morals of 3AM behind is. What are we going to do that's going to help the fire space? We're never going to do anything that's going to hinder. We're never going to do anything that's going to yeah, we'll make $5 million if we do this. Yeah, that's not good. Like let's make sure that we do the right thing first, and that's going to resonate with our customers, and it already has. We've actually been able to bring on some very big partners. It's most notably the latest was T-Mobile. T-Mobile is now reselling our product, and it's for their government departments and all that. But attracting these large customers. I'm sorry, the partners rather, is what's also helping us get more customers as well. And as long as we're doing the right thing, we're helping the betterment of all of them. So.
Awesome. Great. So now let's shift gears a little bit to TechNexus. So you've been TechNexus has been one of the investors. Can you tell us how it's played a role in supporting 3M's growth?
Yep. So they've been amazing. I actually, Ellie and Andrew, would call him Lulu. They've been great. I love working with them. Even Fred, when he would come in, he would help out. It's okay. You need a connection. You need, this person over here. How can I help you? They even do a lot of intros that I don't even ask for. If they ever come across someone, for example, they introduced us to the Chicago Bears CTO. Because once they heard that we were tracking NFL stadiums, we actually track every Buffalo Bills game and every Philadelphia Eagles game. They're like, hey, I know the guy at the Bears. Let's go. And so they made that intro right away too. So they've been incredible in that, and also just a really good sounding board. So if we ever have an issue, I know I could call up Ellie, like Ellie, look, I'm running into this. Let's talk it through. They've always been good in that sense. So I love to have them as a partner. They're very in depth in the public safety space, so they know what we're talking about and they know the challenges that we're facing.